You're listening to At the Grove, a podcast for the Heritage School.
Hello, Hawks. Welcome back to At the Grove. This is the last episode of this semester, but we will be back in the new year with more discussions about all the things happening at the nest. But as this semester comes to a close, we're taking a moment this episode to celebrate electives, the classes that let students explore new interests, try something different, and get creative. This year, our electives teachers introduced some exciting new classes, and today we'll hear about what's been happening in these classes and how they've allowed our students to grow, discover new passions, and make the most of this semester.
We have three of our elective teachers here in to talk about their classes. We have Chadwick, Miss Martha, and Miss Catherine. Hello, welcome everybody.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Thanks for being here. You're all three new to the podcast. So if you will just introduce yourself for anyone who may not know who you are, just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved at the Heritage School, and telling us what you teach.
Well, my name's Chadwick Moore. I teach the wood shop here, which is a new class that literally just this year, from what I understand. And my background is welding and fabricating and general making. I work for a scenic shop making props for the movie industry and commercial industry for about 20 years. And this is something I'm doing to moonlight and pass my knowledge down to the children.
Very nice.
So my name is Martha Milam, and this is my second full year at Heritage. I actually taught in the Coweta School District for many years, and I've always taught chemistry. So I'm teaching chemistry, and I'm also teaching forensics and oceanography this year. So that's been a nice addition to my repertoire. And then fun fact, I used to work with Miss Hallman's mother at East Coweta High School.
True.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yes.
My name is Catherine Hallman, and I'm actually an alumni of the Heritage School. So I graduated in 2018 and then just kept comparing every school that I worked at before this to Heritage. So finally just decided to come work here. And I teach biology and anatomy in addition to the elective family consumer science.
So a lot of these electives are new, and people may not know that we offer these really cool kind of electives. You mentioned the classes that you teach, but can you tell us a little bit more about the elective again and what specifically in that class you're doing?
So the wood shop is a little bit of new school and old school. You know, schools back in the day, every school had a wood shop, and Heritage, I don't think has ever been known for having a lot of these kinds of electives. So it's been a really cool way to teach this next generation that isn't exposed to a lot of the, just how to saw a piece of wood, how to read a tape measure. In fact, that's one of my greatest goals in this class in any one semester is just, can I get these children out the door knowing how to read a tape measure and how to draw a straight line and saw. Yeah, well, it's true because it's just not like it was, so I think it's great. And they seem to really get a kick out of it, and they learn a lot from it, and they surprise themselves.
So Martha, you're teaching two different electives. Can you tell us a little bit about both of those?
Yeah, sure thing. So forensics is great, because a lot of us really like a good crime show or we like a murder mystery novel, and forensics is great because it's a real life application of chemistry. And we actually talk a lot about the history back in the 1920s when Prohibition was around. That's when the birth of forensics really took place. This is crazy, but the number one cause of death in New York City in the 1920s was homicide by poison. And that's because they could not detect how a person died. So for example, arsenic or cyanide, what they did was they got the chemists to figure out, toxicology. How do you analyze if someone has been poisoned with arsenic or cyanide? What does that look like? So making science part of the legal system was a really big thing for America and obviously cut down a lot on the homicide numbers. So that was a good thing. Just applying real life science to everyday lives and all of that and making the world a better place through science was key with forensics. And then the same thing with oceanography, just really understanding. We talk a lot about the environment and sustainability in our oceanography class and learning the chemistry and the earth science and the biology, all those science components that go together to make up the subject of oceanography. It's pretty cool, especially for students who are older and they've taken all these sciences and they get to see, what it looks like when you put everything together and apply it to real life.
With family consumer science, it's like a practical life skill. I describe it to them as everything you need to know before you graduate or everything you need to know during young adulthood. And I actually have to give kudos to alumni Reed Roberts because I always try and make anatomy really really applicable to their life from a medical standpoint. So being in charge of your own health. And so that's like a big thing in anatomy. And he was like, why don't we have a class for practical life skills, financial literacy, which I think Miss Kaylin does a little bit of with her business and computer readiness, but more, what products you shouldn't mix together when cleaning, how to cook, childcare. So that's sort of where I am. And then we've had like a hodgepodge. We're in a hodgepodge unit right now where we're doing dancing, what different dress codes mean, why it's important to RSVP to invitation. It's like things like that. So it's everything. And I took a lot of insight from students last year about what they wish they had known. And so I made a big long list and tried to organize it into units.
I think there's an actual crossover in a strange way to the woodshop where it's practical skills introduced, and sometimes it's the simple things that if you just let it fall through the cracks and then they become adults.
Oh, we had a whole automotive unit. Mr. Bill helped with the automotive unit, teaching how to change a tire, what to look for with fluids and all that stuff. So they've said they've gotten a lot out of it so far, which is good to hear.
Sure. I mean, I used to teach college before I came here, and a lot of those kids were fine with doing the assignments, but they couldn't handle the life part of it. And, that catches up to them. So I think that's great. Even more preparing them to go beyond their own and fix their own things if they can, and cook their own meals and survive. Survival skills.
I tell all of these young men that, if you intend on getting married one day, you're going to appreciate what you learned in this class.
You've kind of been talking about what the class is overall, but I want to get into what the day-to-day looks like for your classes. So what makes these electives different from their core classes that they're taking, and what does that typically look like on a day-to-day for you in your class?
Very active, especially in my class. It's almost a no sit-down class, and you can only use one tool at a time. So generally, I'll have 2 or 3 projects working at one time, and that way I can say, what do you feel like working on today? Do you want to work on the dice that I've got you working on, or this other thing that we're doing? And then I team them up best I can, and I let the ones that excel kind of tutor along. And honestly, it works that way in real life shops, which I've spent most of my life in, where that's how you team people up. You take somebody who's this and that, and you let them work together, and it's good. It works out good because the kids that grasp it better, they actually, I think they're learning even more teaching their helping teach. You can actually see them go into like correcting and doing my job essentially, but it's helping ingrain what I've taught them, and they actually grasp, and they're like, oh man, I can actually do this. And then I put somebody with them, and they're like, look, like this.
Sometimes the best way to learn something is by teaching somebody else how to do it.
Well, it breeds a camaraderie, and some fellowship inside the room, and it calms things down a little bit and makes people accountable.
And Catherine, I know sometimes your class is cooking, because my interns will sneak in there to see if anything's being made. I send them on an errand and they come back and go with food or whatever. Where have you been?
Well, I might have to move the cooking unit to the end because it was our second unit. And we started with the care and keeping of you and your home, so hygiene, and then how to clean a house and fold a fitted sheet and all that kind of stuff. And then we moved into cooking, but then they still wanted to cook for the whole rest of the year. And I was like, we have another thing, like once we started it. And so we cook once a week now.
Cooking's an important part of life. You gotta eat 3 times a day, so.
They've learned a lot, and I've seen them grow a lot with that. I really just want them to come out of the class with confidence that they know about these skills, and so it doesn't seem daunting. So I'm not going for perfection or like able to do everything, but that they know that when they're living on their own, that they feel confident. I could go to the store, I could put together a meal for me, for whoever. I could put together a budget if I needed to, so I've been trying to work on confidence with them, but the day-to-day depends on the unit we're in. Yeah. But I always try and have it be hands-on. So I try and have it be real life scenarios, or like with Mr. Bill doing the automotive stuff or cooking. We cleaned the boys and girls bathroom in the Innovation Center. They really folded a fitted sheet. They sewed on a button. So they did stain removal, which was a big one. They were shocked about the stain removal.
Yes, I still need to learn a little bit about that.
I still can't fold a fitted sheet. So,
This summer I had to spend some time prepping because I was like, if I'm going to teach them how to chop, I myself need to know how to properly chop an onion or properly chop a pepper or something like that. So I was like, I've got to get it together.
I think that's what's great about these electives. They are very hands-on. And Martha, you mentioned that too with forensics. Like, it's a hands-on kind of chemistry. What does that look like, I guess, for oceanography too?
Right. Yeah. Well, so starting with the forensics, I'll tell you that a lot of times we're doing labs. So they will be doing something like dusting for fingerprints, testing for blood typing.
They got a shoe print for me the other day.
Yeah. So yeah, they made molds and, to look at someone's footprint. And then we always have like a mystery, who's this belong to? Because forensics is real life, problem solving, figuring out how to kind of think outside the box. But then we also do things like toxicology testing. They'll take different like Tylenol and Advil and different types of medicines and determine which is which, because a lot of times that happens at a crime scene. There are, different types of drugs involved, and those need to be identified and characterized. So doing the labs and then doing research into real life crimes that happen in the community and figuring out how the crime scene investigators did their job and solved the mystery.
And oceanography on a day-to-day, what is that?
A lot of chemistry labs and biology labs, actually, where we're looking at different salinity, which is how salty the water is, and dissolved gases within a water system, because that's what the ocean is. We talk about history and some of the historical ocean explorers, and then how that relates to what's going on now, real world things that are happening now. And last year we had a really cool trip to the Georgia Aquarium. We got to see a lot of those scuba divers actually at the aquarium, collecting data and all the things that need to happen to keep our oceans clean and safe.
And you guys kind of touched on when you were talking about your classes about student impact, but I want to dive into that a little bit more. In your classes, have you seen any particular projects resonate with the students, or any fun or inspiring stories that you've seen come out of these electives of maybe these kids learning things they'd never even thought about before?
100%. I mean, just the very first project I put them on, I had to go, simple, but let's start learning the tape measure, and because there's a real life crossover between geometry and true mathematics in the wood shop, and so we had to start there. Or we really couldn't go any further, and so I had them make dice out of 4x4s, so a 3.5 by 3.5 cube, and then you have to literally do this entire layout so everything could be centered out and everything looks symmetrical. Watching them at first, it just blew their mind. And once I just showed them and had them draw the lines and actually do it, watching them kind of grow into that project and realize that it's not rocket science. This is doable and it's fun, and you can take that one very simple project and you can amplify that to as complicated of a project as you want to do. It's the exact same concept. You draw straight lines, you make symmetrical measurements, just watching them surprise themselves. Then we went deeper into games and built some tabletop cornhole sets that turned out really good, and I helped a lot on those. I wanted them to turn out really, really nice, and it was a great way to do that because they really were just super attentive. Like, I can't believe how good this is turning out. Like, oh my gosh, I did that right. And then when we got to the end product, and they were all just like truly blown away. They were just like, oh my gosh, this really actually turned out.
Things that you create too. It's like a special kind of pride that
I dedicated
really cool.
my whole life to it for that very reason. Yes, correct. I mean, it is a great feeling to just build, and then everyone that looks at it goes, "You did that?" That's just an amazing feeling. And I want them to have that same feeling.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So when in forensics, they have had to be creative and they think outside the box and they come up with these crime scenes and scenarios, and they love going around campus and setting up like the football coach is the number one suspect in this big case, and watching the kids interrogate someone, in a scenario, good cop, bad cop, and trying to really hammer down on these suspects and do their investigation. So they've gotten really creative with all of this, and just that out of the box thinking is really cool to watch them and collaborating with each other and then bouncing ideas off of each other and putting it all together, problem solving on the go. So yep, that's been cool.
I think confidence, like I've seen their confidence grow, which has been the best part, especially with the cooking unit, because they all sort of came in and were like, how do we cook a chicken? Like, you know, how do we make a roux? Like that sort of thing. And so a lot of them have surprised themselves and have verbally told me that. But I think the biggest thing is I have these 3 projects that are semester long. And the first one is the Comfort Zone Challenge. It's 1 per month for September, October, and November, where they have to do 3 things that push themselves out of their comfort zone. They have to eat alone in public or make a cold call, or like you would make an appointment for yourself. And then there was a dopamine detox challenge where they had to go without their phone for 24 or 48 hours. And then the last one was a household chore that they wouldn't normally engage in. So cook dinner for the family or clean out something that they haven't cleaned out in a while or mow the lawn if they're not used to mowing the lawn. They do all this at home and then they write a reflection or they take a video of themselves talking about the experience. And the stuff that they've said has just, it was exactly the goal of that project.
That's awesome.
The comfort zone one,
Yeah,
I was really
I like
excited
that
for them
a
to
lot.
do. You don't know when you're going to go on a business trip and have to eat alone.
To be comfortable by yourself.
Yeah.
If you want to go do something, go do it. And so that's a nice push.
It was,
into starting
and they don't
it.
like it. I mean, when I introduced
No,
it
at
at the
first it's
beginning of the
weird.
semester, they were really upset. They were like, we are not doing this. And, you know,
Really?
now some of them are working ahead or like, I did this over Thanksgiving break. And like Jeb,
Right.
Jeb Moody has cooked dinner for his family several times now. So
That's
it's
so
opened a lot of
lovely.
doors. And
Oh, that's sweet.
like,
That's actually really great.
it's been awesome. So I feel really happy with how those projects have turned out. And I'm glad that they were able to have that experience.
It's good for you for actually thinking about like that being something you need to teach. You don't think about how many people in this world.
That's not very
It's almost a phobia. Like, it's like,
And your dependency on other people is dependency on other vices, like their phone specifically, you know, things that are going to distract them. Like, and so that my purpose with that, with the dopamine detox and with that is that they're so quick to grab that, to fill a space, to fill a void, whether it's eating alone and they're uncomfortable, you know, or they're standing in line and they're uncomfortable. So I just wanted them to be able to experience that before they're in the adult world. Every gap I'm like trying to fill in a semester, but it's good.
it's funny because I'm filling gaps on the other end of that spectrum, which is like 1950s gaps.
Yeah.
They were never taught.
the analog world.
Yeah.
Well, Chadwick, I know you and I have talked before about how your course also overlaps with the core classes.
Correct.
So can you all kind of attest to how are your skills being used in these core classes and vice versa? Like, are they making these connections, how all of these things go together? Like, it's not just fun to cook, or it's not just, oh, this fun class that I go to and build things. Like, it's also it's all connected.
When I first told them that I was talking to the environmental teacher, Ms. Camp, about doing birdhouses for the Grove, they immediately picked up on, oh, like there's, we're not going to just build games here. Like there are actually other very practical things. And even since then, Mike has come to us and been like, hey, can you repair the antlers for the new display going out? And so the
I think the theater teacher's heading your way too.
I know. I have a feeling I'm gonna have no problems coming up with projects from here on out. But it's kind of cool to see them make those connections. Even that first little dice project, I had 2 of the kids jumped out immediately. It was like, this is just like geometry.
So let's see, with oceanography, well, I've already mentioned it, but it's clearly a culmination of chemistry, biology, math. We do calculations, but there's some social science involved as well. So they're talking about the pros and cons of sea mining, like mining for resources in the ocean. Is that something that is a good thing or a bad thing? Is that going to hurt or help the ocean animals and sea life? So you have to balance all those things. So the social sciences, and of course, that's part of forensics as well. It's really about those criminal minds and how you're going to really look at a crime suspect. And then, of course, you have the government and the legal system with forensics, and talk a lot about history. And of course, all of the science and ballistics is physics, and looking at trajectories of bullets and blood splatter and all the things that can happen at a crime scene. Definitely all the sciences for sure.
That's what's great about these electives. I think sometimes they see them as like, here's my math notebook, and here's my science notebook, and here's my English notebook. And I tried to get that point across too when I was teaching English. Like, no matter what career you go into, you're going to have to write. Whether that is literal writing text or speaking, which I would consider writing, and
Absolutely.
email, social media, like you're going to have to write, and it's going to connect. Like if you're a math person, great, but you got to explain that math in articles or teaching it, it all connects. And or, oh, I want to be a sports pro player. I'm like, great, well, you're going to have to do interviews.
Yeah, I was going to say marketing yourself.
Right. So it's great that these classes make those connections. like abundantly clear to them that like, oh, they are all connected.
Right.
It's not just my core classes separated. Like this is the connection between all of them. And kind of extending on that, I want to talk a little bit more too about how these students are using these to choose careers. We all kind of see at the seniors like change their mind as they get into senior year and start taking different classes. And I know there's several in your class, Martha, who want to go into oceanography and biology and things like that. Have you heard of any students who are like, this might get me thinking about doing something different or pursuing a different career or gives me ideas for the future?
I noticed that even the ones that think they have a good idea where they're going just from knowing life, that there's a lot of twists and turns.
Oh,
So we got a lot of, from being a senior in high school, we got a lot of twists and turns. But I think just my class alone, just with the few kids I've already been dealing with, seeing them not be afraid of helping their uncle this summer. If they're asked to go build a thing or help build a thing, now all of a sudden they're like, I could do that. Like, yeah, you could do that. Absolutely.
Because you're doing the same thing, trying to get them out of their comfort zone by
100%.
teaching them these skills.
Correct. Whereas if their uncle or whatever would have asked them without this class, be like, hey, you want me to help me build a deck this summer? They're going to be like, no, I'm going to play Call of Duty with my buddy. But because they took my class and they remember that it's actually kind of cool to use power tools and read a tape measure and run around and do this, they'll be way more apt to be like, yes. And so I think that's, as far as my elective is concerned, that's the most important.
Anything coming out of your guys' classes, Catherine or Martha, that you've seen?
Well, it's funny. We're in our job readiness and getting interviews, skills, all that. We did handshakes today. And
That's great.
And I had them practice not using filler words, so like and all that stuff, which I'm very aware of this podcast like after speaking about that yesterday. So they've had to practice those skills, but then I also had them take personality tests. And I know that personality tests don't reveal everything about a person, but then they were able to look at careers that sort of fit with those personality types. And so it was especially helpful for those who kept saying, you know, I don't know what job I want. I don't know what job I want. It sort of narrowed it down. Instead of the paralysis of analysis is like the world is open. And I know Miss Kaylin does that as well when she's doing her college counseling. She has a lot of personality and career aptitude stuff that they have to do. But it was just helpful for them to think about it so that when we do the actual, we're going to do mock interviews, they kind of have a list of questions and ideas sort of in the field or realm that they think they want to be in.
And I've had some kids in forensic science, they want to go into criminal justice, which is getting to be a more fairly common major, in my opinion. But then they're really able to explore all the fields. For example, in forensics, they can gravitate towards the research and the writing projects that we do, or the lab and the hands-on projects, or the historical things that we talk about. And they can kind of see where these things fit and how they might pursue a career and make it applicable to the jobs that are out there these days.
Absolutely. And probably realizing too what jobs you can do with those skills. Like, oh, I really love science, but there's a lot of different jobs where you use science.
Right.
There's a lot of jobs where you use these skills.
Yeah, because they've seen scientists work in the lab or testify in court, you know, or write patents and things like that. So using all those skills and enjoying science or whatever combination of things that they like to do, they can put them together.
This has been a great conversation. Thank you guys so much again for coming in. But you're all new, so you may not know this. I always end on a fun, kind of spontaneous question.
Okay.
To end the podcast. So your fun question to consider is, if your elective had to survive on a deserted island, what class do you think would be most prepared and why? Make the argument for your class. You would be the class to survive the best on a deserted island.
I feel like yours for shelter.
You're supposed to be arguing for yourself.
But I was going to say, I think it's me.
I know, I'm no kidding.
Because it is all practical life and survival skills.
Absolutely.
I've actually thought about having Frank Marchman come in and teach a wilderness survival class. Like,
that would be so cool.
But they did CPR with me. Like, they've done all of that. So I personally feel like me, but also we would not have shelter.
Well, my kids could measure the salinity of the ocean water they're
They would
surrounded
know
by.
if they could drink the water or not.
Yes.
When there's a Lord of the Flies moment, we know who started it.
And if there's an unfortunate, criminal activity on the island.
We know who kicked off. I'll build the raft where we can exile without that way.
Yes.
I think
together, all three of our classes. We're seeing it. It's all three. That's the answer.
We gotta take all these classes.
I think the kids taking our classes, that would be the real challenge.
100%.
It's making sure they all survived.
We all survive.
Well, thank you guys again for coming in. This is
A lot of fun. What great classes. I want to come join and take the classes.
Anytime.
Everybody's welcome to come to my class.
You never know.
You know?
Everybody's welcome.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Heritage School podcast. You can listen to At the Grove on Spotify, Apple Music, or your favorite podcast app. Further connect with the Heritage School by following us on Instagram and Facebook, or visiting our website at heritageschool.com. I'm Emily Kimball, and we will see you next time at the Grove.